Yes, all of you Le Mans Ultimate fans out there need to take a deep breath, because it's happening.
Okay, it's happening!
LMU is leaving early access pretty soon, plus more content and features coming in the future. But why now, and how? Tom and I are here to break it all down, and we might also hear from CEO of Motorsport Games, Stephen Hood, a little bit later on. But Tom, tell us the news first of all.
Well, it's quite a lot to digest. The news that is more timely is that Le Mans Ultimate will be leaving early access after its release in that program in February 2024 on the 22nd of July this year, 2025. So version 1.0 will land there. At the same time, there will be the Mercedes-AMG LM GT3, which was an old car, but it's a new addition to the real World Endurance Championship roster this year. And there'll be the Aston Martin Valkyrie LMH, which is a new car and was a new entry into WEC this season with its naturally aspirated V12 engine. Both of those will be added for free, not as DLC, to coincide with version 1.0, along with quality of life improvements and what's billed as a significant patch. And then, after that, they've confirmed European Le Mans Series DLC, so that is 3 tracks, Silverstone, Catalunya, Paul Ricard, plus LMP3 cars. We don't know when or the pricing, but that's been confirmed that will definitely happen. And that they have confirmed they will work on a career mode for single-player fans, although that is further down the line. Estimate of Q1 2026. So, John, quick thoughts.
I mean, first of all, it's finally happening, and I've been saying this for a little while now that it feels like we're getting close to a version 1.0 state, just because of how the game is becoming more polished. It's still not there, but it's closer, and obviously, the online racing's great. Everything about LMU feels like it's not too far away from what you could justify as a version 1.0 release. Obviously, it would have been cool to see at Le Mans itself, but I mean, not long to wait now, which is great. And one thing that really stood out to me there, Tom, as well as all the new stuff, which we're gonna get onto, the fact that the Aston Martin Valkyrie and of course the Mercedes are coming for free. I think that's awesome news for fans of Le Mans, because they're some very cool cars, and I think they didn't need to make them free, but they've done it.
Yeah, one of the criticisms I would say from some people is of Le Mans Ultimate that, okay, there's a lot of DLC and season passes and subscriptions all within the early access period, which is relatively unprecedented, I would say, certainly for sim racing. If you add up that cost, it's obviously cheaper than some other sim racing platforms out there, but it was within early access. So as I suppose it must be like a nice welcome gesture that, okay, for version 1.0, you are going to get the Valkyrie, which in the real world is a bit slow. BLP is still not helping it out. But in the game, I'm sure it'll be great to drive, and they'll have a way where it's still competitive.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I say free for this stuff. Obviously, you still have to have the game, right? So that's, you've got to kind of remember that. Yeah, exactly. And obviously, we don't yet know if the price is going to be higher for the full release than it is for early access. So there's that to bear in mind as well. Well,
yes, and speaking of prices, like we said up front, the European Le Mans Series, or ELMS, which is also run by the ACO, which runs 24 Hours of Le Mans and WEC, hence the link here. We know that it's going to be paid DLC, but we don't know how much or how they're going to do that. It must be outside of the existing season pass, would be my assumption, because that was just specifically called the 2024 season pass. But we'll have to see. However, more tracks is really key, because in the real life, this championship, WEC that is, doesn't have any new venues for next year. But this means Silverstone, Paul Ricard, Barcelona, as we already mentioned. And the Silverstone is key because Silverstone was a track removed from Motorsport Games and Studio 397's R Factor 2 sim product because of licensing issues in terms of renewal costs, allegedly. But it means they've got the deal and they've got the licensing already sorted for this circuit. So I'd love to see that. And LMP3, I think, is a great starter prototype.
Yeah, things have really turned around, haven't they? When you consider where we were with Silverstone RF2 and now to where things are. I mean, it kind of is like an overall summary of what's happening with this company, on the face of it at least. Looking forward to hearing from Stephen a bit later on. And yeah, I agree. I think LMU needed more content. In the same way that ACC added GT2s and added various other things, Porsche Cup and all these things, I think LMU needed a little bit more variety, so having LMP3 is great. Obviously, the rest of the European Le Mans Series cars are the same as what we have, or at least there may be some individual cars, but generally speaking, it's the same classes, for instance, with LMP2, of course, and GT3. I do think the tracks are very important, like you say, because we're limited in WEC with what we can do. This was one of the few ways of actually getting more tracks into the game in a legitimate way. So, and we obviously expected this at some point. We did say before that we were thinking ELMS might be on the cards. Could it also open the doors to other series, maybe Asian Le Mans series in future, or IMSA? I mean, it's a great starting point at least.
Yeah, and just to reiterate as well, I think LMP3, which is just in ELMS, is a great series to get you into that prototype style downforce, but without the speed of an LMP2. And I think it'd be very, very popular online, depending on the pricing model. And we believe there are 3 different sorts of LMP3 racing in ELMS: the Ligier, Ginetta, and one I definitely cannot pronounce.
Yeah, a Duquesne. Yeah. And what I should say about LMP3 as well is, and as you say, it's like a good kind of starting point to learn. And I think that perfectly ties in with another thing that we've learned about, which is career mode, which will be coming, but not at launch. So that is, we knew they were working on some form of single player career mode, or it's been talked about before, but this is proper official confirmation. There will be single player career mode coming next year. So having categories like LMP3 as potential routes into that can probably create a more immersive experience. So as a driver, it's like, joining an endurance scene as maybe a pay driver or someone in these lower categories, and then working your way up to the World Endurance Championship. It all ties in quite nicely on the face of it.
Yeah, it should do. I was a bit disappointed. I felt a bit conflicted when they said version 1.0 is coming, but career mode is,
not yet.
next year. The images shown potentially hint at like a driver profile or a bank balance, so maybe things might change in its early days, right? But there might be some form of in-game currency where you earn credits based on race results and then have to buy rides and upgrades. The sponsorship
or buy your
element.
Race seat, even like real life. Maybe actually buy the race seat in a particular series. That would be cool.
That would be brilliant. There's also a team interest section, a calendar, some sort of driver rating. Maybe as you go up the driver ratings, you like bronze, silver, gold, you unlock different races or seats within a team. So the potential is there, but this is one element of, yes, okay, the foundations of the driving experience and the online are not complete, but ready enough for version 1.0. The single player stuff, we're going to have to wait, but it does at least sound like it's in depth.
Yeah, and a Q1 2026 expected release. So we'll probably hear more about that towards the end of this year. And obviously, it's very early days to put any solid numbers down there, but that's good on the face of it. I'm with you, though. I would have liked to have seen that as a version 1.0 release, or at least some form of simplified championship mode or something like that. I mean, I'm still happy about the fact that this game is coming to full release. There's some exciting things happening, but it means at least we've got a lot more to look forward to in future. I mean, are you happy with all of these announcements? Does this please you, or are you a little bit underwhelmed in general?
No. Yeah, I'm happy because I think Le Mans Ultimate's got a lot of potential still. It's actually really great as it is now, in my opinion. And the netcode and the online ranking system and the driving experience, top tier. And we wanted to see more of it. We've been asking for a lot of these things, so they're working on it.
Yeah, and speaking of asking for things, why don't we now sit down and have a quick chat with Motorsport Games CEO Stephen Hood. Here's what he has to say.
So Stephen, big news, version 1.0 is coming out soon in July, just around the corner. But why July, I suppose?
Why not July? It's a lovely month for version 1.0. It's more about when the product was ready. We have our own kind of internal deadlines and somewhat loose schedules for things because you've got to have something to aim for. But during that journey to delivery, we play and enjoy the game all the time. It's in constant development. Everybody's focused on it. We can see some way out that certain things aren't ready. Sometimes it's how long is a piece of string, especially when we're integrating new features like driver swaps, which is not a carryover from what existed in R Factor 2. A lot of things are rewritten and a lot of things are done from scratch. In a shifting sands product, for example, a lot of the underlying technology is rewritten in anticipation of eventually going to console and making the PC product more performant. Those things the players don't normally get to see, but it means a lot of stuff is changing, behind closed doors. And those things don't always go to plan. So instead of just pushing stuff out to say, well, we hit a particular deadline that we announced a long time ago, we shift a date. It happens to be July. Would I have liked it to be version 1.0 by the time, we're at now? In June, of course I would have, but it wasn't ready. So, what's a small kind of date change amongst friends? It's the right thing to do.
So, from the consumer's perspective, what will be the main differences between the early access build and version 1.0?
I think it's a case of, if I cast my mind back, because as we've started to, in development terms, separate from the early access public build, as we call it, versus 1.0, I used to play online a lot in the championships when they launched and everybody was playing online. I can't do that. And I couldn't do that for a prolonged period of time because the driving model had changed. Features are missing. Having all sorts of things in there like the driver swaps and even changing the tire model or the way that the AI work or additional track content, all of the goodies that we get to play. That is not in the public version. That feels like a complete step change for me as a player, because first and foremost, I'm a player. Okay, I'm inside the development studio and I have the honor to poke and prod on the game. I can't say I work on it because that would be rude to suggest at my age that I'm a major contributor to that. But they're completely different game experiences now. Almost to the point, especially with the time model change, that I started to worry, are people going to enjoy the change? Because it's easy to kind of throw a big change in there when people say, oh, it's not quite right, it doesn't feel very good, I'm not enjoying it, because it's worth just making a change. But when you read so much feedback online, or we had been reading feedback online, people going, this is great. Everybody's got a slightly different opinion of it, but the force feedback feels great, the cars feel great, the tyres are great, the racing is great in GT3. I hope they update the LMP2 in a hypercar. And you're in the middle of changing the way that the GT3 cars work. You can have moments of panic where you're thinking, is this the right thing to do? Because if they don't like it or it's too hard or too sim, we're going to get caned. We got lost many months ago playing this new version. I almost feel like it's Le Mans version 2. We call it version 1.0 because it's coming out of early access, but it feels like a big step up for the overall experience. Is broader and really bringing home that concept of endurance racing, what it's meant to be, in an accessible format. I don't mean that in marketing speak, but we put a lot of time into UI and UX experience, which you can see as a step change from what came from the studio before. Can it be better? Yes, it will be. There's always improvements to be made there, but it's fun. It's really good fun. And it's still a sim at the end of the day, but it's not a crazy hardcore sim. It's got depth, and you can drive it to your own kind of skill level. So there's too many things to mention, but I see it as almost a revision of the game. It's like a big change for us.
Interesting. Okay, so just to make sure I'm correct here, that between the update coming 10th of June, which introduces the team play or the first version of it, and liveries and also the final 2024 content. But then you're talking about as well, the main difference between that build and what will be in July is really like the way it would drive and perform and the UI, but there's no necessary big new feature for the version 1.0. It's more refinements and changes throughout the overall experience. So is that fair?
Yeah, it's refined, but it's also when the features start to be utilized by an internal system as well. So you're going through that kind of 10th of June all the way through to 1.0, where we start to ramp up things. Like take for example, team events. A lot of that code and those features are there, and people will start to utilize them. But before the service, like race control, starts to utilize team events, that's going to be between the two versions. So really, I'd see the rollout is it begins with the 10th of June, all the way through to version 1.0. So during that period, more and more things become accessible or fully live, let's say, and it creates this prolonged period of transitioning to version 1.0 rather than a big step change on a particular date. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Because it's such a large rollout with a small team that and things are still coming in hot, as always.
Yeah, well, that's game development.
Yeah, it's game development, especially for us. We're still quite small and we're doing a lot of stuff. Like if you see a lot of people commenting online, I can't believe they're doing A, B, C, D very quickly. Sometimes we can't believe it either. But if you don't push, then you're not really in this race, are you? And it's our forte is being dynamically small so that we can very quickly decide to do things and then try to implement them. There's not a kind of load of red tape or people to approve. It's, do I want to do it? Does the team want to do it? Let's go ahead and make it happen. And we want to enjoy it ourselves. That's the big difference.
Well, speaking of maybe a bigger feature for further down the line. I believe you're working on or going to work on a career mode for single player fans, and this will be potentially Q1 26 as a rough estimate. Certainly, it's not version 1. So I'd just like you to explain the vision for the career mode, if that's okay, but then also, when's development started? Why isn't it ready for version 1.0?
Yeah, so the vision for career mode is, if you just think about playing out that fantasy of being a driver that arrives at the World Endurance Championship, doesn't have much of a reputation, although there's still a debate internally as to whether or not we give you different paths of entry, because we collect a lot of your data from playing online. We've already got the driver ranks, the safety rank, and it could give you a different starting position. But some people want to do that 0 to hero mission, that story arc, and that will be available. For us, we always believed that in WEC and endurance racing, there are so many kind of gamified elements anyway. The different driver ranks, being a platinum driver, coming as bronze, getting the sponsorship to get your first drive. Maybe you don't get your first season, but you get an opportunity to impress. All of that stuff is, gold to us. So we always had a vision to do it. We actually had to stop ourselves from trying to integrate this into the product very early on because the company is so small. It's easy to say yes to so many things, and this is where, historically motorsport games got into trouble. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Yes, sure. We haven't got anybody to do it, but we'll say yes, right? I mean, that's a fool's game. And we've course corrected that. And saying no to doing a career mode until we were ready, I think has paid dividends to the online experience. The game is predominantly built for online, but there's a lot of single player underpinnings. Like, even before we got to the early access release, we had a single player championship feature working, not releasable, but functioning, before people kind of jump on the bandwagon and say, why don't you just launch it? But it formed the underpinnings for what career mode has become. But we wanted to focus on online. The whole company model was built around that, not just from monetization of DLC or the race control subscriptions, but playing online was the primary focus. We thought we could do that because one of our weaknesses in terms of development was headcount that was attributed to UI and UX. Because doing a career mode for me and for the team is more than just chaining championship races together and having a couple of decision points. You can see that in some other titles. That for me is a dull career mode where you're just trying to use the title and say, back of the box, we've got a career mode. Yeah, pretty hollow one. I don't want to do the hollow stuff. But we've been poring over the career concept for a long time. You'll have seen some of the imagery starting to come out around what that career mode is. And we're also afraid of giving too much away publicly because we know other studios are probably working on career modes. We don't think to the same extent that we are, to be perfectly honest. But we don't want to give them too many ideas. But there's so many things that happen in the real world that we're utilizing and incorporating into career. And, Q1 26 is our target for something that, the underpinnings already exist, but there's still a lot of work to do, still a lot of design work. But reworking the UI, improving the game, improving the stability, improving the AI, which is an ongoing process, and then incorporating the magic of a proper, fully fledged career mode, considering we also have a livery designer and everything else in there now, is pretty cool for us. That's the next obvious step, and making it more of a single player experience so you can choose is the next fork in the road that we're really interested in. So I'm excited about it. I would play it myself. I think it will be the best career mode that exists in racing.
Well, we'll hold
name a better career mode. I don't know. I mean, there can be different career modes, but what we're chasing, I think, is quite different.
Well, we'll see next year.
Yes. Yeah. I won't be available if it doesn't come true. You'll have to interview somebody else.
All right.
I think one thing that could help with the overall depth of the career mode is having different disciplines, different series. And obviously another recent announcement revolves around the European Le Mans series, ELMS. So my question on that, has work actually started on the ELMS content? Is it something we might see this year, or is that further down the line?
I think it's something you might see this year. We've seen a lot of commentary online for a prolonged period about why don't they add this? The weakness is the number of tracks available, and we're not fools. We can see that as well. For us to add additional series was always a problem. I mean, when we were scaling the company back and, we were selling off licenses or trying to get out of deals, that was a tough time. And then going around knocking on the door at the same time saying, hey, we want to add more content. Can we get this license? It's not a very good look. But we've got through a lot of that. And actually, I think you guys also noticed, Ben and I were at, in Barcelona, Catalonia. We had a very good, direct conversation with the ACO there, two of the key players. And that relationship is very strong because the game has done so well. And I think the ACO and their partners are very proud to showcase that. And certainly we see them showcasing it in front of their other partners, sponsors, and manufacturers. So we're onto a good thing. The ACO can now say the WEC is, a player in the gaming space, and a few years ago they couldn't really say that. You could be a bit part player with additional content, but having your own game is, pretty valuable in terms of that brand. That made the conversation much easier, and we said we want to expand, incorporating this content, getting the road to Le Mans and WEC really is still the halo experience, and it is for all of those kind of categories. But we could add European Le Mans series that gives valuable new content and another path for career mode, and it's actually that ELMS, Asian Le Mans, and maybe some others unnamed, or also career concepts. There's a concept of integrating those and either starting there or participating in that as part of your journey that fits the overall arc of World Endurance Championship and Le Mans.
Just to finish off, reflecting on the project as a whole so far, and now announcing that the venerated version 1.0 release is coming soon, there must have been times over the past couple of years when you must have thought that you might never exit early access, right?
I haven't given it a great deal of thought because it would probably make me cry. But it's a very good question. If I do cast my mind back, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the history of this company, especially over the last couple of years, has been a challenge. Not only were we trying to make an entirely new product, even if it's from the underpinnings of a very successful R Factor 2, it was no mean feat to kind of set about trying to create that and deliver it, and everything else that goes with it. I mean, we talk about Le Mans Ultimate a lot, but we also had to build that race control platform and the funnel and the service around it, the DLC, the content, update so many different systems, and try and change the underpinnings of what R Factor 2 is, so it's fit for the future, and possible transition to console, which is accelerating. And the backdrop against which we were operating was. Are we surviving week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter? It was not cool. And I thought the game would probably come out of early access. I just didn't know, under what banner or under what brand. Because I think very quickly the product, once it was launched, I mean, we had a lot of offers from within the games industry, right? Other developers, other publishers who are knocking on the door. And I would in their shoes as well, thinking, well, the mothership is probably about to crumble. We can pick up this for $1 and make a fortune and be in place with the license. I mean, it's a joint venture between Motorsport Games and the ACO, so it's a bit more awkward, and they would have veto rights. So it's not just a vanilla license that you transfer. But yeah, many times I thought there would be a struggle. I thought the game would always come out of early access. I just didn't know it would be under the current structure, and that was a challenge. But I mean, it's an amazing story. In my mind, it's gone from complete disaster, about to be dead, everybody wishing it was dead, and the company was dead, all the hate that exists on the internet, it's great to get the popcorn out, to making what I think is a very good sim, not a great sim yet, a very good sim with a very strong license, and, helping to save the company, gives us a path forward. And that opened doors like the recent Pimax deal. That's been very strong for us as well. We pick and choose where we go. I mean, 24 months ago, we couldn't choose anything. except optimism. But I'm very proud of the team and everybody associated to get us here. But we did it. Now, as we go to version 1.0, we succeeded there as well. But I'm not even thinking about the past. I'm just thinking about where we go. Career mode, additional content, additional series, console. That's the exciting part.
Yes, I didn't want to drag up too much of the history because obviously there've been some very difficult times and very difficult decisions. But having said that, you've made it. You were subsumed by someone else, and the game is going to be, sounds like, still going from strength to strength over the next, year at least. So looking forward to it. Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, thank you so much. I always appreciate it. Thank you.
So plenty of interesting stuff there to digest, but I want to hear what you lot think down in the comments below. And also check out the TraxionGG website for a little bit more information on LMU and PS5. But that is going to be it for this video. Thanks for joining me, Tom. A big thank you as well to Stephen, and we'll see you soon. We look forward to seeing the full release of Le Mans Ultimate. And in the meantime, thanks for watching and have a great day.